Master, I, Shui Daozi, fought alongside you across the heavens and earth back in the day, facing countless life and death battles. I have paid my debt for your past life-saving grace. Our debts and grievances have long since been settled. After your death, although I took over the divine sect, once you were gone, the sect must naturally have a new master. I did nothing wrong in this matter, Shui Daozi. But, are you truly dead, or not? The young man muttered to himself, his expression suddenly contorted with a fierce grimace. He looked up toward the void outside the hall, his face darkening even further. You should have died. With the combined full force of myself, Palm Sovereign, and Mystic Tone Dao Venerable, there was no possibility for you to survive. Furthermore, several mysterious supreme cultivators from the ancient immortal domain secretly intervened back then. Even if your cultivation was beyond the heavens, you were bound to die for sure. Then, why, several months ago, did I feel a trace of your aura? Could it be that you didn't die back then, but instead reincarnated and began cultivation anew? The white-haired youth's expression became even more twisted, and his eyes radiated an overwhelming murderous intent. If you truly reincarnated, those ancient supreme cultivators who searched for your soul in the ancient immortal domain must have noticed. But I definitely sensed your aura months ago. His heart trembled at the thought of that aura. It was precisely because of this that, for the past few months, he had felt a sense of impending doom, living in fear, even going to great lengths to activate the divine sect and conduct a frantic investigation. When he finally came across the jade slip of the Kungsa Holy Maiden, despite his greed for the Kungsa legacy, he did not go in person. Instead, he sent disciples to meet her. He had cultivated for countless millennia, and since his master's death, he had never experienced such a fearful feeling. It reminded him of the constant sense of terror before his master died, a fear that had lingered until the master's death, when he finally breathed a sigh of relief. But now, that same terrifying feeling from years ago had resurfaced sharply, leaving him shivering with fear. After a long silence, the white-haired youth gritted his teeth. His eyes burned with killing intent as he muttered coldly, "Even if you really reincarnated, I will kill you again." Besides, those ancient supreme cultivators from the ancient immortal domain who sought out Tian-Yi couldn't find him. Master, if you aren't reincarnated, then it's Tian-Yi returning. You've hidden inside Tian-Yi. I dare not touch Tian-Yi, but I can still force out the soul hiding within you. The white-haired youth's gaze flickered, and he slowly sat back down, meditating for a long time before closing his eyes. Luzaheo, your divine abilities have shown no signs that would make me suspect you, except for one. The body immobilization art. This technique, in this world, can only be mastered by Master, Qing Lin, and myself. How laughable that Qing Lin once thought it was a technique he stumbled upon by accident and didn't take it seriously. He didn't spend as much time following the master as I did, so he never knew how powerful this technique truly was. It is a divine art that Master brought back from the ancient immortal domain. Body immobilization, soul immobilization, immortal immobilization, essence immobilization, heaven and earth operation immobilization, stellar river flow immobilization, time and years immobilization, spatial transformation immobilization. After Master's death, no one else understands this technique as deeply as I do. Now, you are in the Limitless sect. I will let you exist for a while longer. Once I refine the 9-phased eternal reincarnation mirror and set up the reincarnation grand formation, whether Master has reincarnated or is hidden within Tian-Yi, this time, I won't let you escape. The white-haired youth opened his eyes, cold light flashing within them. He was proceeding with extreme caution, not because of Wang Lin, but because of his master. Therefore, he would never act recklessly, but instead make thorough preparations. At the peak of Mount Lushu in the Limitless sect, Wang Lin sat in the pavilion, setting down his teacup. The aura of the ancient god surged into his body through his feet, gathering at the center of his forehead. The sect master and grand elder of the Limitless sect were chatting with Wang Lin. Their words carried an underlying inquiry about where Wang Lin had learned his divine abilities. If this had been any other time, Wang Lin would have ignored them and given a casual response. But right now, they had agreed to send the extreming soul. More importantly, Wang Lin was absorbing the ancient god aura of Mount Lushu. As he continued to absorb it, the changes in the environment grew more intense. In order to distract the two of them, Wang Lin maintained a calm expression and spoke with a smile. Their conversation was mostly filled with vague, clouded words, but still carried some profound meaning. The way of heaven and earth lies in the heart. With the Tao in your heart, you can transform all things, and with it, integrate all things into your Tao intent, transforming them into divine abilities of your own. As Wang Lin was speaking, two streaks of rainbow light howled toward the pavilion and landed outside the door, transforming into two middle-aged men dressed in Taoist robes. They respectfully stood outside the door, and one of them clasped his hands and spoke respectfully, "Disciple has brought the extreme soul. Please, sect master, take a look." Wang Lin remained expressionless, not even glancing outside the pavilion. He continued his discourse, not finishing until half a fragrant stick of incense later. Then, he swept his gaze toward the door. The sect master of the Wuji sect had always been attentive to Wang Lin's words. After hearing him, a bitter smile appeared on his face. He understood that Wang Lin's words essentially amounted to saying nothing, yet somehow, something was still said. It was all very strange. At this moment, seeing that Wang Lin's attention was on the outside of the loft, he cleared his throat and said in a deep voice, "You may show it to fellow Taoist Liu." The two people standing outside the loft responded respectfully and walked inside, stopping in front of Wang Lin. They respectfully took out 6 small flags. Wang Lin accepted them, and after scanning them with his divine sense, he immediately noticed that each of the 6 flags contained a highly refined extreme soul. With a hearty laugh, Wang Lin stood up, cupping his hands in front of the sect master of Wuji sect and the Grand Elder. He smiled and said, "Thank you both. Liu is deeply grateful for this." The sect master of Wuji sect rose and smiled. "Fellow Taoist Liu, you are too kind. 5 days from now is the grand competition of the 8th branch sect. We hope you will give your all to help our Wuji sect win the first victory." The Grand Elder also stood and smiled, cupping his hands in greeting. Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he nodded and said, "Rest assured, I will give my all. Now, Liu will be leaving the Origin Reunion sect for 100 years, so I shall not disturb you any further. I will return to the Origin Reunion sect and reunite with my juniors." The sect master of Wuji sect smiled even more broadly. Hearing this, he laughed and said, "Fellow Taoist Liu, you are indeed a man of character, showing great care for your disciples. Very well, I shall not keep you. Sun De, please lead fellow Taoist Liu and escort him to the Origin Reunion sect." One of the Wuji sect disciples, who had delivered the extreme soul, immediately responded respectfully, "Farewell." Wang Lin cupped his hands towards the sect master and Grand Elder of Wuji sect, then turned and shot out of the loft like a streak of light, quickly disappearing into the air. He breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Previously, he had already sensed that the ancient god's aura within the mountain peak had grown more intense, with faint signs of shaking the heavens and earth. If he stayed any longer, just a few breaths would be enough for the changes in the mountain to be noticed by others. Thus, he had to leave quickly. In just the span of a single incense stick's time, the ancient god star mark hidden in the center of Wang Lin's brow, the collapsed 6th star, had reappeared, forming a weak vortex. Though it had not fully recovered, it was already a world apart from what it was before. It's a pity. But as long as no one notices, there will be many opportunities in the future to absorb the ancient god's aura here. And that sword refined by the star mark will eventually be mine. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged as he focused his mind and, under the guidance of the Wuji sect disciple, rushed towards the sky. As he left, the ancient god's aura within the mountain gradually weakened once more, eventually falling into slumber. From beginning to end, Wang Lin had been extremely cautious in his absorption, thus avoiding drawing too much attention. At most, some might have felt that the heavenly and earthly primordial energy around the mountain had changed slightly, but no obvious flaw was revealed. Inside the loft of Mount Luxiu, after Wang Lin left, the sect master of Wuji sect put away his smile and said solemnly, "This person is extraordinary." As soon as he arrived here, the celestial energy in this place began to change. The Grand Elder beside him nodded, speaking calmly, "Regardless, since he is from the Origin Reunion sect, he is considered one of our own. Such a person should not be overly suppressed. His participation in the grand competition of the 8th branch sect will be a great event for us." The sect master of Wuji sect pondered for a moment, then waved his sleeve, sending his divine sense to sweep over the entire Mount Luxiu. "Gather all the Grand Elders. We must discuss this matter." Under the guidance of the Wuji sect disciple, Wang Lin broke through the starry sky and returned to another cultivation star, sealed by formation restrictions. This Wuji sect disciple had an expression of utmost respect. Although he claimed to be guiding the way, in reality, he was half a step behind, not daring to surpass Wang Lin. Upon entering the sealed cultivation star, the Wuji sect disciple immediately took out a jade slip. After sending a message, he quickly learned the location of the Origin Reunion sect and proceeded directly towards it. Before long, the two arrived at the courtyard of the Origin Reunion sect. The Wuji sect disciple cupped his hands and respectfully said to Wang Lin, "Senior, this is the residence of the Origin Reunion sect. If you have no further instructions, I will take my leave." Wang Lin nodded. The Wuji sect disciple bowed and retreated, turning into a streak of light and shooting off into the distance. At this moment, in the sky, only Wang Lin remained. Naturally, he saw Mu Bingmei in the distance, and also saw Li Qianmei in the courtyard. Li Qianmei stood in the courtyard, the moonlight falling upon her, as if draping her in a silver veil. Her delicate face looked especially peaceful under the moonlight. Li Qianmei raised her head, gazing at Wang Lin in midair. A smile that made one's heart flutter appeared on her face. "You're back." "Back," Wang Lin said quietly, landing in the courtyard a few steps away from Li Qianmei. After a brief silence, he spoke softly. The moonlight also illuminated Wang Lin, stretching his shadow long. His shadow seemed to overlap with Li Qianmei's for a brief moment at the edge, but it quickly separated again. The surroundings were quiet, with only the gentle breeze blowing through, causing the flowers and grasses in the courtyard to rustle. Yet, between Wang Lin and Li Qianmei, under the moonlight, both were silent. Wang Lin's silence stemmed from not knowing what to say. Whether it was their separation in the rivers and lakes, or the bracelet Li Qianmei had left him before she departed, all of it left Wang Lin speechless. That bracelet had saved his life in the Rainbow Realm, and this grace, he wanted to repay. However, such repayment could never carry emotion. His heart had died, and it could only hold Li Muan's image. Unless the world was destroyed, or unless he died, perhaps he would choose a different path. But for now, he couldn't. Or perhaps, Li Qianmei hadn't truly entered his heart yet. To Wang Lin, Li Qianmei was just an admired fellow cultivator. The appearance of the bracelet, and the twist of fate, had complicated that admiration. In fact, Wang Lin felt that Li Qianmei's excellence should not be directed at him. Their meeting was only due to those 3 questions. Beyond that, everything else seemed pale. He didn't share years of experiences with her in the demonic sea. He hadn't waited for hundreds of years in the Cloud Heaven sect. There was no scene of white-haired beauty turning to dust in the valley. There was no music accompanying his 2,000 years of cultivation. There was no heavenly Tao envoy arriving. No moment where Wang Lin screamed to the heavens, roaring with pain those earth-shattering words. "The heavens want you dead, but I'll take you back." This was a promise, a vow Wang Lin had made to one woman in his life. So, facing Li Qianmei, Wang Lin remained silent. His heart was complicated when it came to her. "Would you stay with me for a while?" Li Qianmei bit her lip and softly spoke. She sat on the grass in the courtyard, bathed in moonlight, making her look breathtakingly beautiful, peerless in her charm. Wang Lin silently sat beside her, gazing up at the starry night sky, the enchanting moonlight, and the faint fragrance of Li Qianmei drifting to his nose. He felt himself relax. "How has your 100 years been?" Li Qianmei lowered her head, gently twirling a blade of grass around her finger, causing it to wind around her hand. "Not bad," Wang Lin replied softly. "Did you ever look at that rivers and lakes painting?" Li Qianmei smiled lightly, lifting her gaze to Wang Lin, her expression peaceful yet filled with a subtle beauty. Wang Lin's gaze landed on Li Qianmei's face, then quickly withdrew. He didn't speak. "Thank you for your treasure. It accompanied me through 100 lonely years in the Rift battlefield." Li Qianmei continued, her eyes fixed on Wang Lin. Wang Lin opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end, he remained silent. "In a few days, I will leave." Li Qianmei's gaze remained steady on Wang Lin, her eyes trembling, yet her gaze was firm, never leaving him. Her fingers, still tangled in the grass, seemed unwilling to free themselves. "I will send you off," Wang Lin said slowly, breaking his silence. Li Qianmei smiled, blinking and teasing. "I thought you had become mute." Wang Lin gave a bitter smile and shook his head, remaining silent. "You said you would send me off last time, but if I hadn't gone back to find you, you wouldn't have." Li Qianmei's eyes trembled more intensely now, but she still stared at Wang Lin. "This time, I will send you off." Wang Lin avoided her gaze and looked ahead, speaking softly. Li Qianmei's smile faded into a bittersweet expression. Looking at Wang Lin beside her, there was a distant feeling that overwhelmed her heart. He was so close yet so far away, so distant that it seemed no force in this world could bring them closer. It was like a fish swimming in the water, gazing at a bird flying in the sky. The fish's tears blended into the water, but the bird couldn't see them, because between them lay the heavens, the impenetrable surface of the water. The bird occasionally landed on the riverbank and saw the fish in the water. Perhaps it paused for a moment, but ultimately it spread its wings and flew away, leaving only the wind it caused, rippling the water's surface, stirring up bitter ripples that affected the fish below. This time, when I leave, it will be a long time before I return. Or perhaps, I will never return. Li Qianmei's soft words drifted into Wang Lin's ears, making him even more silent. I am an orphan. My master picked me up and raised me. Going to the demon sect battlefield was my destiny. If one day, I never come back, I hope you can remember. Li Qianmei's fingers, still tangled in the grass, trembled slightly and tightened further. She never told Wang Lin that over the past century, the image of him in her heart had become clearer and clearer. She also never told him that because of the golden immortal brush she had lost, she had risked her life to retrieve it despite her severe injuries. What's more, she never told Wang Lin the enormous pressure she had been under to come to the Wuji sect in the first place. Her frail body couldn't withstand this kind of pressure. Those who managed to leave the demon sect battlefield were either dead. Yet, under the immense pressure from the Patian sect, the demon sect, and the relentless battles of 100 years, she still chose to leave the battlefield mid-journey. All of this, only to see this person, someone who felt so far, far away from her. She also didn't tell Wang Lin that her departure had caused different opinions in the Patian sect, and there were words of dissatisfaction directed at her. Even the demon sect had condemned her for leaving. She didn't tell him that by leaving the battlefield, she would lose her chance to enter the demon sect, to be recognized by them, and to be passed down their teachings. None of this did she say, so Wang Lin had no idea. When I was young, I realized I was different from others. My hair is blue, and in the entire cloud sea, no one else had hair of that color. Li Qianmei spoke softly, her bitterness mixed with childhood memories. I cultivated very diligently, and my master made many pills for me. It was with the help of these pills that I reached my current cultivation level. My cultivation was given to me by my master, by the Patian sect. That's why I must go to the battlefield. It is my destiny. Her hand, wrapped around a blade of grass, didn't loosen. With a crisp sound, she pulled it out, still holding the grass tightly in her hand. She stood up, flicked her blue hair, and looked at Wang Lin with her eyes. Softly, she asked, if one day, I am no longer here, will you remember that there was a woman named Li Qianmei who briefly passed through your life? Hearing this, Wang Lin felt a sharp pain in his heart. His face turned pale, and after a long time, he finally nodded gently. I will. A smile appeared on Li Qianmei's face, but it was tinged with sadness. She gazed at Wang Lin, as though trying to imprint him entirely into her memory with this one look, or perhaps, to completely erase him from her thoughts. There is a kind of distance in this world that exists equally between remembering and forgetting. It is just as immeasurable, just as distant. Like the fish at the bottom of the water, when the bird flies away, it struggles to leap out of the water, wanting to gaze at the bird without the water between them. But in the end, with just a glance, it sinks back to the bottom. Wang Lin watched Li Qianmei, his heart filled with even more bitterness. Vaguely, he remembered stepping into the gate of heavenly reversal years ago, as if witnessing a scene from his past life. In the final scene, he saw himself as a bird flying in the vast sky. In the blurred memory, he seemed to recall that the bird had once been captivated by a brightly colored fish in a river under the sunlight, landing by the riverbank to observe it closely. At that moment, the fish was also at the bottom of the water, gazing at him. Under the moonlight, Li Qianmei's soft sigh spread like a gentle breeze through the quiet courtyard, gradually fading as her figure walked farther away. Thank you, Wang Lin said softly, watching Li Qianmei's silhouette in the moonlight. Why thank me? Li Qianmei paused, turned to look at Wang Lin, her expression still calm. Wang Lin remained silent for a moment, flipping his right hand, and a bracelet appeared in his palm. It saved my life once. The moment Li Qianmei saw the bracelet, her calm expression faltered. She stared at the bracelet, and a smile slowly appeared on her face. The smile grew brighter, making her incredibly beautiful in that moment. I remember. I threw it away. Li Qianmei blinked and softly spoke. I found it by accident later. Wang Lin's tone was a little strange. Even as he spoke, he found it hard to believe the words coming from his own mouth. Ah, so you found it by accident. Li Qianmei smiled, nodding her head. I'm giving it back to you. Wang Lin knew that Li Qianmei misunderstood, but it was difficult to explain. He stood up, and, holding the bracelet, was about to return it to her. If you found it, you can keep it. If you give it back to me, I'll just throw it away. Li Qianmei's smile deepened, and she bit her lower lip, giving Wang Lin a careful glance before turning to leave. Remember, you promised me that this time, you'd see me off. Li Qianmei's soft voice came from behind, and with that, her figure faded into the moonlight, returning to her room in the courtyard. Wang Lin held the bracelet, sighing quietly. After a long while, he tucked it away and gazed at the courtyard outside. Over there stood another woman. Her beauty was breathtaking. She too was looking at Wang Lin, her expression complex and tinged with desolation. Under the moonlight, that desolation turned into loneliness as she silently met Wang Lin's gaze. That single glance seemed to bring them back to Vermilion Birdstar, to within the Heng Yue sect, where a girl with a water spirit root named Willow Eyebrows had, for the first time, looked out at the crowd and seen the young Wang Lin. This silence was unlike what he'd experienced with Li Qianmei. It was hard to say exactly how, but something was different. It was as if, in Wang Lin's life, aside from Li Muan, there would always be someone, named Willow Eyebrows, or now Mu Bimei, quietly accompanying him. It was that way on Vermilion Birdstar. It was that way in the Luotian star domain. And now, even here in the Sea of Clouds, it remained unchanged. Amid that silence, Mu Bingmei lowered her head and took a quiet step forward, crossing through that deep gully of a gate and stepping into the courtyard. She stopped a few paces away on the grassy field. I didn't expect to meet you here, she said softly, her voice slightly hoarse as she lifted her gaze to the night sky. Wang Lin withdrew his eyes from her and replied calmly. His expression was steady, no longer marked by the turmoil of the past. It was as if that earlier gaze had merely been exchanged between strangers. The affairs of this world are rarely predictable, Wang Lin said evenly. Under the moonlight, Mu Bingmei's unrivaled beauty took on a brilliance that was almost unreal. There was a regal grace in her presence, a natural aura formed over the years as the Xun'er holy maiden. Of all the women Wang Lin had encountered in his life, none matched Mu Bingmei in beauty. She seemed less like a mortal and more like a fairy spirit who had accidentally descended into the world. Unpredictable indeed. A trace of bitterness touched Mu Bingmei's lips. Why have you come to the Sea of Clouds? Wang Lin asked, looking at her. Though her doppelganger had once brought him unbearable suffering, she was also carved deeply into his heart, so deeply, in fact, that he could never forget her. Willow Eyebrows had been her other self, and everything about her seemed to continue in this woman. Sometimes, even Wang Lin himself couldn't distinguish, was she Willow Eyebrows or Mu Bingmei. But that no longer mattered. Before leaving the Alliance star domain, Wang Lin had already resolved all grievances with this woman. The wind had passed. It could stir his heart no more. Do you know someone named Tuasen, an ancient god? Mu Bingmei looked at Wang Lin. Alongside her bitterness, a deep unease flickered in her eyes. Tuasen. Wang Lin's expression changed instantly, a sharp glint flashing through his eyes. He's broken free. The Luotian star domain's armies collapsed under his assault. He slaughtered countless cultivators and forced the retreat back to Luotian. They no longer dared to step outside their borders. Even Lu Fuzi, a great divine ability cultivator from Luotian, retreated into the stars and did not dare face Tuasen. Mu Bingmei's words were soft, but the news she delivered was earth-shattering. As they reached Wang Lin's ears, his entire body tensed as if a volcano within him was about to erupt. But she wasn't finished yet. What she had to tell him was far from over. The star domain occupied by the Corpse Een sect was found by Tua's senator. Their ruler fell, many perished, and the sect itself has all but crumbled. The Four Saints sect suffered heavy casualties in his advance. Even the Azure Dragon Sacred Emperor, despite his heaven-defying cultivation, could not stand against him. His fate remains unknown. All remaining forces of the Cultivation Alliance were crushed and scattered by Tuasen's onslaught. Only the main headquarters of the Alliance, for reasons unknown, escaped his attention and remained intact. Wang Lin's pupils contracted sharply. Each blow of news was like a runaway carriage smashing into his heart, erupting into a storm within. He had never imagined that Tuasen's awakening would unleash such catastrophic upheaval in the Alliance star domain. The Renegade Immortal realm, the one you care about most, was spared, Mu Bingmei said, biting her lip. Tuasen went there, but was stopped outside its borders by Qing Lin. It seemed the two had some kind of agreement. In the end, Tuasen left. You were right. If Ruar had chosen to stay with me back then, with her cultivation, she would never have survived this disaster. The Xun'er realm no longer exists. All the cultivators within died in battle. Even the steward who had guarded Kungsu for years fell at Tua Sin's hand. He gave his life to buy me a chance to escape. My physical body was destroyed. What you see now is one I've only just reformed. My cultivation has regressed significantly. Reaching my peak again will take time. Wang Lin's inner storm slowly calmed. Though he had mentally prepared for Tua Sin's return, hearing Mu Bingmei speak the words still shook him to his core. As the Kungsa Holy Maiden, bearer of the Kungsa legacy, I came here through secret means. Tens of thousands of years ago, a previous Kungsa Holy Maiden had ties with the Cloud Sea Divine Sect. The Grand Elder of the Divine Sect once owed her a great favor. That is why I escaped to this place, hoping to cultivate within the Divine Sect and use its strength to recover my lost cultivation. Mu Bingmei's voice was low and solemn, but as she spoke, her body suddenly trembled. It was Wang Lin who made her tremble. He stepped forward, closing the distance in an instant. Raising his right hand, he formed a sword with 2 fingers and struck toward the center of Mu Bingmei's forehead like a flash of lightning. Mu Bingmei did not evade. She froze, her face turning deathly pale as if she had suddenly remembered something, but it wasn't certain. She stood still as Wang Lin's fingers landed between her brows. In that instant, her mind roared and echoed wildly. Moments later, a swirling aura flashed out from her brow. It spun violently, emanating a dense ancient god aura. The aura was so potent that no one else could sense it, but Wang Lin could feel it clearly. His expression darkened as he looked up at the night sky, lost in thought. Mu Bingmei was ghostly pale. She stood dazed before stepping back, her spirit trembling as though all her strength had been stripped away. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She bit her lower lip, tears streaming down her cheeks. In the end, she was still just a woman. Her intention had been to tell Wang Lin everything she knew, so he would be prepared. She feared for his safety and wanted him to understand the situation, wanted him to leave as soon as possible. Her intention had been good. I've examined my body and essence spirit countless times since arriving in the Cloud Sea. I found nothing, not the slightest trace. This body was reconstructed anew. Even my essence spirit was combed through inch by inch. It's all right. Wang Lin lowered his gaze. Seeing Mu Bingmei's pale face, her tears, and her look of regret and helplessness, he sighed inwardly and said gently, "This isn't your fault. I once saw it with my own eyes. Lu Fuzi, a cultivator at the 3rd step of Luo Tian, was nearly killed by Tua Sin. With Tua Sin's power, leaving behind a brand on you without your knowledge or detection is entirely within reason." Wang Lin's voice remained soft. He had naturally seen the sincerity in her heart. Mu Bingmei hadn't imagined things would turn out like this. She stood there pale and powerless. Besides, the fact that Tua Sin left behind an ancient god brand on you might just be him delivering me a gift. A glint flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. He raised his right hand and reached toward Mu Bingmei's forehead. In that instant, drawn by the resonance of ancient god auras, the ancient god mark between her brows detached and shot toward Wang Lin. As it neared him, star-like motes spun out from Wang Lin's forehead, instantly absorbing the aura and fusing it into the newly formed 6th star within him. A thunderous boom echoed through his mind as Tua Sin's shadow manifested, roaring savagely, only to be met by the illusory ancient god form of Wang Lin appearing in front of it. This was a battle of devouring and absorption. Though Tua Sin was powerful, the aura he had left in Mu Bingmei was faint. In just moments, Wang Lin forcibly consumed it, further stabilizing his 6th star. Before leaving the Alliance star domain, he shouted your name, trying to track you down. He even came to the Cloud Sea star domain. But somehow, he couldn't find you, Mu Bingmei said quietly, her eyes filled with guilt and complexity. Wang Lin's expression shifted abruptly. He looked at Mu Bingmei and asked in a deep voice, "Do you know when exactly he came to the Cloud Sea?" "I don't know the exact time," she replied after some thought. "I was in seclusion, recovering my body. But roughly, it couldn't have been more than 100 years ago." 100 years. Wang Lin's eyes gleamed as he fell into thought. For most of that century, he had been inside that strange seed Dao space. He had a vague sense that the place was connected to the sealed realm Grand Array. If he couldn't sense my presence within the sealed realm, then if I were him, I'd assume the target had left the sealed space. And the place I was indeed tied to the sealed realm Grand Array. If Tua Sin tried to break through that array, he might have sensed something. In that case, Wang Lin's expression grew strange. If Tua Sin is still within the sealed space, then I've already been out in the Rainbow Realm for several months. There's no way he wouldn't have come by now. And yet, he hasn't. That must mean Tuo Sin has already broken through the sealed realm grand array by some unknown means and gone beyond the realm. As Wang Lin pieced together the true answer, far beyond the realm, within the ancient star of antiquity, a furious roar shook the stars. In the vastness of space, a colossal ancient god surged forth from an ancient clan stronghold, roaring in fury. Behind him, blood filled the air, and crimson light engulfed the heavens. This was already the 9th ancient clan he had destroyed, yet within this ancient star of antiquity, he still couldn't find Wang Lin's Tuo Sin, and was nearly driven mad. But just moments before, at the instant he annihilated and slaughtered this ancient clan, his mind suddenly shook. He distinctly felt the mark he had left on the Xun'er Holy Maiden, sensing Wang Lin's aura. This discovery made Tuo Sin's face instantly darken. A storm of fury erupted wildly within him. You're inside the realm. How is that possible? I've searched this realm countless times. Tuo Sin howled madly, but at this moment, he no longer had the strength to break through the sealed realm grand array again for a short period of time. She came to find Wang Lin, solely to tell him of the scenes from the alliance. Between the two of them, there was no more conversation. It seemed he was unwilling to speak, and she had no desire to either. Before leaving, Mu Bingmei's figure under the moonlight lingered outside the courtyard gate. After a pause, she didn't turn back but softly spoke a sentence. Li Qianmei, she's quite remarkable, but haven't you forgotten about Wanna's sister? I believe, if Wanna wakes up, she wouldn't want to see you in your 1,000 years of solitude. And I don't want to see that either. After today, I'll retreat into seclusion in the divine sect to heal. I probably won't leave for 1,000 years, and I don't know where we'll meet again in 1,000 years. But Wang Lin, there's something I need to say to you. I am Lu Mei, Wang Ping's mother. Once I break the shackles of Kung-Su, I'll accompany Wang Ping through the cycles of reincarnation for all eternity and truly be a mother to him. Mu Bingmei murmured softly, walking further away. Her Tao heart seemed to reach a sense of completion as she uttered these words. The 10,000 illusions heartless path, the 10,000 illusions heavenly demon path. Eventually, they slowly began to change. The Xun'er Holy Maiden's avatar underwent the divine art of the heavens. Since ancient times, only one person has succeeded, while all others failed. Mu Bingmei took a shortcut, merging her own Tao into the avatar, ultimately failing in comparison to Lu Mei. Her Tao heart was incomplete, causing the most powerful divine art of Kung-Su to develop a crack. This crack was Lu Mei, it was Wang Lin, and it was Wang Ping. But now, as Mu Bingmei's heart and thoughts changed, as she went through everything she had, she no longer avoided the crack in her Tao heart, but chose to face it, to accept it. It was because of this shift in heart that her Tao began to change, and signs of completion appeared within it. The difference between heartlessness and affection was just one word. When cultivating, if one practices the unkind way of the heavens with an unfeeling heart, then what one cultivates cannot truly be called the Tao. Cultivators must have a touch of sentiment in their hearts. With this sentiment, they can break through the Tao's reverse flow and find their reliance and precious protection amidst the heavens and earth. The crack in Mu Bingmei's Tao heart now had Wang Lin's figure within it. This figure, as her heart gradually moved toward completion, became the mark hidden beneath her heartlessness. With this mark, her Tao finally stepped onto the path to completion. In the courtyard, under the moonlit night, two distinct fragrances from the women lingered around Wang Lin as he stood there alone, gazing at the moonlight, remaining silent for a long while. Time slowly passed, and in the blink of an eye, several days had gone by. The grand competition for the 8th branch sect was approaching, and it was time to leave. 3 days ago, Mu Bingmei had left the Limitless sect with Wang Shanshan. Wang Shanshan received the order from her master to quickly return to the Divine sect with Mu Bingmei. The Limitless sect didn't dare stop them. Before leaving, Mu Bingmei didn't look back. She was proud. She was the Xun'er Holy Maiden. Xun'er realm was destroyed, and now, only she was left. From this moment, she no longer belonged to herself. The responsibility she carried weighed heavily upon her. She would cultivate to restore Kingsu and fulfill the responsibility of the Xun'er Holy Maiden. She had evaded this responsibility for a long time, but now she no longer avoided it. She chose to face it. Her conversation with Wang Lin cleared the mortal thoughts from her heart, locking those memories deeply inside and sealing them away. Li Qianmei was also about to leave. She had received an urgent summons from her master at the Skybreaker sect. The jade slip contained no details, but the harsh tone made Li Qianmei immediately give up all trivial matters and rush to return to the Skybreaker sect through the Limitless sect's teleportation array. It seemed that a storm was on the horizon. Li Qianmei could not refuse her master's words. The Skybreaker sect had given her everything, and her master had raised her. Although her master didn't reveal the reason, the severity in those words was unlike anything she had ever encountered. She only had time to bid a brief farewell to Wang Lin, then entered the Limitless Sect's teleportation array. After several different teleportation locations, she arrived at the Skybreaker sect. She was also puzzled, not understanding why the sect leader had suddenly issued such an urgent order. In her memory, the sect leader had always been calm, never once showing any signs of anxiety like she felt now. For some reason, she had an inexplicable sense of doubt and unease, as if something was quietly and secretly approaching. As Mu Bingmei and Li Qianmei left one after the other, Wang Lin, accompanied by the sect master of the Limitless Sect, 2 Grand Elders, and several other elders, left the Limitless Sect, preparing to head to the battlefield for the 8th rank Star Domain Grand Competition. There, the true grand event of the Sea of Clouds would take place. The sect master of the Limitless Sect was extremely confident about this battle. He believed that all the other 8th rank sects were bound to lose. This time, the Limitless Sect would undoubtedly take first place. With Wang Lin's arrival, the balance of the event had already shifted, and the overwhelming advantage was entirely in the hands of the Limitless Sect. There was no chance of defeat for them. In fact, the focus of the battle, in the eyes of the Limitless Sect's sect master and the Grand Elders, was no longer the fight itself, but rather the expressions and shock of the other 8th rank sects after the battle ended in an instant. However, as Wang Lin had discussed with Mu Bingmei, things in this world were unpredictable. Just half an hour before the Limitless Sect's group was about to depart, a long rainbow suddenly shot out from the mountain gates of the Limitless Sect. This rainbow emitted a world-shaking aura as it rushed toward the sect master. Inside the rainbow was an elderly man whom Wang Lin had never seen before. However, the man had a glowing halo around him, indicating that he had reached the level of the heavenly decay tribulation. The old man's face was extremely gloomy. Upon nearing them, without saying a word, he tossed a jade slip directly into the hands of the sect master. The sect master frowned as he received the jade slip and swept his divine sense across it. Upon reading it, his expression instantly changed. His demeanor darkened immediately, and his body seemed to tremble with anger, as if he was furious beyond measure. With a cold snort, he passed the jade slip to 2 Grand Elders nearby. Both elders, upon reading it, immediately darkened in expression, and in that moment, the entire sky seemed to turn dark. The divine sect is so domineering. The Grand Elder who had fought Wang Lin earlier exclaimed, his voice filled with biting coldness and rage. One word from the divine sect has caused the Sea of Clouds 8th rank Star Domain Grand Event, which has lasted for tens of thousands of years, to be completely shattered. What in the world could have driven the divine sect to cancel this 8th rank Grand Competition? The Limitless Sect has been preparing for this event for years, with friend Lu aiding us, and we could easily secure first place and wipe out the failures of previous years. Why does the divine sect have the right to cancel this? Another Grand Elder sneered, fury burning in his eyes. But more than anything, there was a sense of helplessness and unwillingness. They were all cultivators with great divine abilities, each proud in their own way. The Limitless Sect was by no means a small sect. Yet, in this moment, they had to humbly accept the cancellation because of a jade slip from the divine sect. The sect master of the Limitless Sect, the elderly man in white, remained silent for a long time. He seemed suddenly drained of energy. With a long sigh, he shook his head and said, "Forget it. Since the divine sect has issued an order to cancel this 8th rank Grand Competition, they must have their reasons. We simply do not know what those reasons are." With a bitter expression, the sect master looked toward Wang Lin, forced a smile, and cupped his hands. "Friend Lu, since the competition has been cancelled by the divine sect, there is no need for us to go. We must convene the other elders to discuss this matter. You and the Origin Reunion sect can head to the 5th rank Star Domain to prepare. We will meet there, and then migrate to the 7th rank Star Domain." Wang Lin's expression remained calm, but for some reason, he felt an uneasy sensation in his heart, as though something immense was slowly unfolding. After a moment of silence, his eyes flashed, and he said, "May I take a look at the jade slip from the divine sect?" The Grand Elder who had been holding the jade slip immediately waved his hand, sending the slip flying towards Wang Lin. Wang Lin caught it and scanned it with his divine sense. The jade slip contained only one sentence. "This 8th rank Grand Competition is hereby cancelled. The divine sect decree." As soon as Wang Lin's divine sense swept over the words, he immediately felt an indescribable, overwhelming force surge from them, as if they had transformed into a gigantic handprint that was descending with thunderous force. Wang Lin's body trembled violently. He quickly withdrew his divine sense and returned the jade slip to the Limitless sect, cupping his hands toward the others before turning and leaving. The members of the Limitless sect were all in complex moods, many of them filled with indignation, but they had no choice but to accept it. Li Qianmei received the jade slip from the Skybreaker sect and left in a hurry. Mu Beimei also left in haste, but neither of them knew the reason. There was nothing suspicious about it. But now, at this moment, the Divine Sect has stopped the 8th rank grand competition. When all of this is connected, it feels strange. Could something major be about to happen in the Sea of Cloud Star domain? Wang Lin frowned, his heart filled with confusion. With a deep sigh, he hurriedly returned to the place where the Origin Reunion sect resided, summoned Lu Yinfei and the others, quickly packed up, and left through the transmission array of the Limitless sect. One by one, they arrived back at the Moro continent in the 5th rank star domain. Wang Lin faintly sensed something ominous, the feeling of unease growing stronger. Even when he meditated, this sense of impending danger persisted, preventing him from entering a meditative state. Quickly organize everything in the Origin Reunion sect. In 3 days, I will take you all to the 7th rank star domain. After that, I will leave. After returning to the Moro continent, Wang Lin spoke these words, then immediately entered closed-door cultivation in his private chamber. His consciousness sank into his essence spirit, quickly merging with the soul of Tian Yunzi. This time, his fusion with Tian Yunzi was not for using divine abilities to face enemies, but rather to harness Tian Yunzi's power in preparation for forcing the unfolding of an unknown change. Meanwhile, in the 9th rank Skybreaker sect, as Li Qianmei returned to her sect through the formation, her expression immediately changed. The calm she once had vanished entirely, replaced by deep shock at what she saw before her. 3 of the 10 elders of the Skybreaker sect had moved out, forming a formation around Li Qianmei in the transmission array. The array flashed with light, and its transmission function was immediately disabled, leaving only a confinement. Her master, who had just emerged from nearly 10,000 years of seclusion, sat cross-legged outside the formation. The moment Li Qianmei appeared, his eyes gleamed brightly, locking onto her without a moment's hesitation. From today onward, you are not allowed to take a single step out of this formation within the next 3 months. Otherwise, the sect rules will take action.